Hello everyone. So we will start with the question and answer section from the previous session. So our first question was, what can you use to organize dimensions into logical categories in a live model? So this is useful when you have a big list of dimensions in a live model and you want to organize them together so that when you will create your stories, it won't be difficult for you to find a dimension. So that's the only thing which will how you organize it. Otherwise it is from visualization perspective or any other thing, it doesn't have any impact. Just to organize a thing, just like in a folder you organize certain things together, so you can do that. It is not going to impact any technical stuff. So you can use group in live model to organize the dimensions. Okay. So moving to next question, you are using a live connection for a model. Where can you define your security? So as you know that when we are using a live connection, we don't have any control on defining the roles and authorization in the SSC level. So it will be always in the backend. That means the source system. You are using a live connection for a model. Where is the data stored? So for a live connection, we do not store any data in SSC. It is fetched to SSC at the runtime. So that means the data is stored in the backend. You are using a live data model with two dimensions, first name and last name. User want a single dimension in the data model that displays the dimension as last name, first name. That means we need to concatenate last name and first name to get this last name, first name together as a single column. So what must we do? So as we know that we don't have any concatenation feature when we are using a live model at SSC side. Neither you can concatenate the two dimensions and create another third dimension at the story level, nor you have any such option at the model level. So the only option would be create the combined data in the source system, because you won't be able to do at the SSC level. So the next question is, which calculation type does the SAP BW live model supports? Here there is some mistake in the question because only one answer is correct from the below option. So the correct answer will be aggregation. So you can perform aggregation and select the type of aggregation like sum, count, maximum, minimum, and what are the context of the models of the dimensions you can select. So this is the type of calculation you can calculate. Apart from this, you can also do restricted measure. You can create restricted measure, or you can perform normal calculation using two measures or multiple measures like mathematical operations and all. But the other three options you can't do, like you can't do currency conversion or unit conversion. You can't convert dimension to measure, and you can't do date difference. So these are not possible in live model. So the correct answer will be only aggregation. So let's start with today's session, which is about dimensions. So dimensions, what is dimension? Dimension is a smallest object, you can say, or a business entity that describes the context or the classification of the measures. Now, what are the type of dimensions? So dimensions can be public, which can be reused in multiple models, or it is a private. That means it is only associated with to a single model. How we can create a dimension? So you can create dimension in two ways. Actually, a private dimension can only be created within the import model. So when you create an import model, so let me explain you. So if you have for a private dimension, how you can create a private dimension? For private dimension, you need to create a import model. Okay. So within import model, as you have seen in the previous session, we get an option to create a dimension, and there are multiple types of dimensions like generic, organization, account, version, date. So all those kind of dimensions you can create, but this will be only associated to your specific import model. Okay. So that is how you can create a private dimension. Now public dimension. So public dimension you can create in two ways. One is the same way, like within the import model, you have an option to create a dimension, and there you have a checkbox either you want to make it as a public or not. So if you take that option public, then it will be created as a public dimension. Okay. So that is one way, like within import model, you can create your public dimension. Another way is to go to the modular section, and there you have a dimension table option. So from there also you can create a okay. So sorry. So this is how you can create a private dimension and public dimension. Private dimension is associated to a particular import model. Public dimension can be reused in multiple import models. Public dimension can be created either within the import model, or it can be created through the modeler. So this is how we can create a public and a private dimension. Moving to the next part, let's start with the definition. So dimension in SAP Analytics Cloud is a data structure that describes business entity. So business entity can be anything like product, customer, region, time, cost center, general ledger account, company code. It can be anything that provides a context or categorization or classification for a measure, which is a numeric data. So just take an example that when I say we have done a revenue of 1 million. Okay. So you can ask me a question. Okay, we have done a revenue of 1 million. Now, what this revenue is about, and what is the time period or the time frame during which we have generated this revenue? What is the particular line of business which has provided me this revenue? Or what is the particular company code associated for this revenue? What is the department which has generated this revenue? So all that question comes. Okay, so that means only having a measure which is a numeric data like revenue or cost or profit, so it doesn't give the context unless we have the dimension. That is why dimension is very important. So by revenue we will not come to know what is the context of this revenue. So to get the context we need a dimension. That means month. So this is for March 25. That means my revenue is 1 million for March 25. Currency, what is the currency of this revenue? For example, it is USD. What is the department that has generated this revenue? So let's suppose it is a um, we can say a logistic department. Okay. What is the company code? Let's suppose company code is 1000. Any name we can give to this company code. That means this set of dimension, whether it is company, department, month, currency, or anything else, this gives the context to my measure, which is revenue. So that is where we use the dimension. Hope this clarifies you the importance of dimension, and we will see now how we can use the dimensions in our um, uh, in our analytical or even for the planning purposes. Okay. Now, when we will create a dimension, whether it is a private or a public, there are five types of dimensions which are available. First one is a generic dimension. Generic dimension can be used in all kinds of models. It can be used in analytic model, it can be used in public model. But you remember, whenever we are creating a dimension, it can only be created for import model. That means acquired model and not the live model, because live model automatically generates the dimensions based on the backend query or backend table. Okay, so there we don't have any option to create a model, create a dimension or measure at the model level for the live model. So whatever we are talking here about the dimension, it is only related to the import models. So this generic dimension can be used in all kind of model, whether it is analytic import model or planning import model. Examples can be product, it can be region, it can be general ledger account, it can be country, it can be anything that gives the context. So any textual text or a code or ID that gives some context to my data, it can be used as a generic dimension. So the key purpose is categorization or analysis. Analysis is basically providing the context, or categorization of the data gives the category, like what category of the data it is. So this is where we create a generic dimension. Now date and time. Date and time again can be used in all kind of import models like analytic and planning. It can be, example can be calendar date, it can be period, it can be year month, or it can be month, posting date, document date. So there are so many dates available in the transaction that can be used as a date time dimension. The purpose of this dimension is to perform the time based analysis. For example, if we are creating a balance sheet report, we need to know like for which month this balance is. So we need a particular month and year to select, so that we will come to know like this is my balance for so and so month. Similarly, if we are doing any trend analysis, like for a price of a material is going up and down, and if I want to see the price, then based on the posting date or the uh, document date, I want to see like how the material price are increasing or decreasing over a period of time. So that is another way of time based analysis. Or in case I want to see my revenue and cost over a period of time on a monthly basis, I use a bar chart or a column chart. So I will see over the period of time how my revenue is increasing or decreasing. So all this time based analysis, wherever is time based analysis is required, in most of the cases or almost all the cases, time based analysis will be required. So there we will create a time date time dimension. Organization. Organization is basically used as a hierarchy or structure of the organization, and it is mostly used in a planning model, or in case of analytic model it can be used for the financial area. Okay, so either planning, or within planning it can be finance, or in analytic also sometimes we use for the finance option. Now what are the example can be cost center, department. So anything like a structure. So particular, let's suppose you have a company code. Within company code you have departments. Within departments you have divisions. Within divisions you have cost center. So however is the hierarchy, so that provides your organizational structure. So there you use an organization, so that because most of the time it will be consistent, so we will be reusing this organization through different models for our analytical and planning purposes. So the key purpose is hierarchies and structures. Next dimension type is account. Account dimension type is basically used in planning, where you have a structural representation of measures. That means you do not segregate the measures by using the dimensions, but you also have so many measures for each and everything. So how it is? So for example, we have a revenue. When we say we have a revenue as measure, now this revenue have other measures as well. That means revenue is coming from US, one region or one division. Revenue is coming from Asia. Revenue is coming from other region. Within region, revenue is coming from a specific country, a specific city, a specific cost center, specific profit center. So this will be break down into this. But each this US revenue is one measure, Asia revenue is another measure. That means my data model is like that, that all these are measures. Asia measure, EMEA revenue, and these all revenues are arranged in a hierarchical format, so that you will get the overall revenue. Similarly, for the cost, for the profit and loss, all are maintained in a hierarchical format or a structural format. So in that case we will be using account, because account gives an option that within the account you can have multiple models, and you can create it as a hierarchy or a structure. So let's suppose you have account for revenue, and within revenue you have so many revenue measures, and you can arrange it so that you get overall revenue. Similarly, for expense you can have another account. So this will be very useful when we do allocation or distribution in planning. So this is very important. So we can do financial logic and aggregation based on this. So based on the driver we define, we will do the aggregation. So we will do the allocations and all. So we will see when we will move to planning sessions. We will see how account is very useful there. The last dimension type is version. Now version is only used in planning. However, whenever you create an import model, version is automatically added, whether it's an analytic model or it's a planning model. But in analytical model, it's of no use of analysis. It is just added for the sake of adding, and it will have always one version that is actual. You can't add other versions like budget, plan, or forecast. But when you create a planning model, then within the version you can have multiple categories. You can't create multiple versions of the actual, it will always remain one. But for budget, forecast, or plan, you can create Budget and forecast, you can have multiple versions of budget and forecast, and you can have public version, private version based on your needs. So all the public version you maintain as a master data. So this is used for the scenario management. So these are the 5 types of dimensions that we can create. Moving to the properties. Now, when we create a dimension, whether a generic dimension or organization, or version, so let's take an example of a generic dimension. So we are creating a generic public dimension called general ledger account, or let's suppose we are creating a generic dimension, public dimension called cost center, or it's material, anything. So when we will be creating those dimension, we need to define the properties of those dimensions. So we will have the dimension members and property of each member. So now what is a property? So for example, you have a cost center. Now this cost center belongs to a particular department. That department belongs to a particular division. That division belongs to a particular company code. That company code belongs to a particular organization. So this is one example. Like this, these are the properties. Like when we have a general ledger as a dimension. So for each member of the general ledger, there is a person or the owner of that general ledger account. What is the description or text of that general ledger account? What is the type of that general ledger, whether it is a P&L or balance sheet? What is the currency associated with that general ledger account? So other features. Similarly, for material, what is the unit of this material? What is the price of each quantity of this material? So for if we are defining a material and we are defining a price, so for a price we will use a decimal type property. If we are defining general ledger account and we are defining the type of general ledger, whether it's a P&L or a balance sheet, we will use text. So most of the time we will be using text. So this is the most used dimension property type. Other thing is like when we are defining a material master data, we can use what is the unit of that material. Okay, so based on the material type, it will have a unit. Similarly, we can, like for any dimension, what currency type we are using, so that currency we can define. Integer can be used in case of the quantity, like how many quantities of a particular material. So if we have a purchase order master data, for example, so for purchase order, a particular PO document header, how many how many quantities are placed. So I'm just giving an example because this is basically a transaction data, but we can sometimes use as a master data as well. So we can use it as a numeric number. So wherever we have a numeric count, so if there is a, for example, a department as my as my dimension table. So within department I have a number of employees for each department. Then we can use this integer as number of employees, where we can have the number of employees. You can see here the example is already there. Now similarly, we have a latitude. So if my dimension table, I want to represent my dimension property on a geomap, then I can define the latitude and longitude as a numeric number value for geolocation plotting. I can also add a region or a country in a ISO code format like AEIN, or I can also use a text called region or sub-region. So these are the types of properties that I can add to my dimension table. Okay, moving to the next part is the write and access. So within write and access, we have 4 checkbox. When we will create a public dimension or even a private dimension, when we will go to a dimension table, within dimension table we will see these 4 checkboxes. Okay, so these are the checkbox. For example, checkbox 1, checkbox 2, checkbox 3, checkbox 4. Now what is the first checkbox? So let's suppose you have a general ledger account as your dimension table. So each you don't want all users to see all the general ledger account. So when you check this option, 2 additional columns will be added. So for example, you have a general ledger. Okay, and when you check this option, which is a data access control, you ticked it, then 2 more columns will be, or property will be added, which is read and write. Okay, what this property will do, so you have general ledger 1, you have general ledger 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So you have a long list of general ledger. but you don't want all general ledger to be read by everyone when they will access the report. So then you can enable this option, data access control, and in the read section you only define the team that wants the access for a particular GL account. So this is team 1. Let's suppose this is team 2, team 2, and this is team 1. So out of 6, team 1 will be able to see only this, and when team 2, any person from team 2 will access the report, he will be able to see only these 3 GL accounts and not the others. Write option is used if you are using a planning model and you want to allow the user to write the data. So then only, so in that we also used unbooked members some many of the times for planning. So if you will not provide access to this, for example, if team 2 want to post the data using GL1, he or she won't be able to do it because they don't have access for GL1, they will only see GL2. So their write access will be used for planning purpose, and similarly you will maintain this teams here as well. You can either maintain a team or you can either maintain a particular user account, however the login is mapped, or you can also use semicolon and maintain multiple user accounts, or a team and a user account, a combination of it. So that is doable. So this is about data access control. Now let's discuss the next option, which is hide parents. Now how hide parent is important is, let's suppose you have a hierarchy maintained in your dimension table, and your hierarchy is, for example, I will give you a simple example where we have a world. Okay, within world we have Asia, we have Middle East, we have North America, we have Latin America, or we have EMEA. Okay, so let's suppose we have these regions, and within Middle East, let's suppose we have UAE. Okay, now the let's we are discussing about a revenue. This shows me a revenue. Now the revenue for from UAE is 1 million, for example. Okay, now I have, using a data access control, I have given user an access to only UAE. Okay, and hide parents is not ticked. Then how the data will appear for that user is world 1 million, then within world Middle East 1 million, then within Middle East UAE 1 million. Okay, so this is a very simple example where we have 3 levels, but in real cases we have a very 7, 8, or 10 plus levels as well. So in case based on the user role, if user is only expected to have a very less amount of access, is not like a general manager or CFO to visualize all the revenue, he only needs access to a particular department or particular cost center or particular group, GL group, then it is useful if we can hide the parents. Otherwise unnecessarily he need to go to 7 levels, although he it doesn't add any context or any value to his analysis. So if we hide the parent, how the data will look like for him? If we just tick hide parent, then he will be only able to see UAE. That's it. And within UAE, if has further breakdown, then the remaining breakdown, but nothing above it. Only the respective node and the respective child of those nodes, however how many level of childs are there, but none of the parents will be visible. So this is where hide parent is useful. Next is responsible. Responsible is basically used, let's suppose you have a general ledger account and you have owner for each general ledger account, then you can use this responsible option and you can maintain the responsible as a team or a particular user or a combination of a team or multiple users, anything. So that this can be used for any activity. So if it's a planning model and you want to perform schedule any activity and using a calendar option, so you can leverage this responsible field. So when you click this, a responsible field will be added, GL and responsible. So similarly for each GL account you can define the responsible person or team, and using a calendar feature you can create a task and assign it to the respective person who is responsible for each GL account. This is just an example. So this is how it can be used. So it can be used for calendar or tracking purpose, or even based on responsibility we can see like what is done, what is pending, as an overview. So that is how responsible is important. Last option is data locking ownership. So we can provide this ownership, and people who will have this data locking ownership will be able to lock or unlock the data. Now you can lock and unlock the data based on any filter options that is applicable. So if you have a company code, um, fiscal year period, so you can lock the data for a particular company code, particular fiscal year period, particular version. So all these selections you can select and lock it, and similarly you can unlock the data as well. So this is useful in case of planning. So let's suppose you have a monthly planning, and your planning starts on 5th of each month and ends on 8th of each month. That means 4 days of a window. So your data, so let's suppose we are in October 5th. So this is October 5th, for example. That means my September actuals are closed. So September financial book are already closed. So I will have the actual for my September, and based on the variance, the analysis and everything, I will do a forecast or planning for the rest of the month, which is October, November, December, or so on. How many, based on my planning, how I want to perform. Now, 8th means this is the close of the cycle. That means by 8th of October, I need to close my planning. So when I close my planning, usually what we do, we lock the data, so that after locking, no user will be able to change it, because once we conclude the data, we share the same data, that this is forecasted value, to the higher management or the all the stakeholders. Now if somebody comes and changes the data, then it will create a problem for the planning and the analytical purposes. So that is why we don't want to allow further changes once the book or the planning is concluded. So on after all the activity is done, we will lock the data on 8th. Now due to some reason, if we found that okay, something I want to fix on 8th itself, or maybe on 9th, which is a quick fix, and I have not shared the data, so the owner of this locking option can open the lock again, unlock the data, do the correction, and then lock it again. It's time to move to the demo session. So we will see like how we can create a public dimension in SAP Analytics Cloud, and how we will maintain the properties of the public dimension. Okay, so now we are in the modular menu of SAP Analytics Cloud, and here we have three tabs: model, public dimension, table, and conversion. We have already discussed about the models; those are live models and import models. So in this session, we will try to create a public dimension table. For that, we need to click on this create new. So these are the types available when we create a public dimension, which is account, generic, and organization. Other two types are date and version, but because those have already predefined property, so that is why we don't create a separate or a custom dimension table for them. So whenever we create a dimension of type version or type date, it will automatically get the respective properties, and we can have some option to update that properties, like we can have the data access control and the hierarchy. For in case of date, what will be the start and end date for that table, those stuff. But for custom dimension table, we have these three types: accounts, generic, and organization. So in this demonstration, we will create a generic account, and let's suppose we will name it as a region. So here you have four checkbox option. Like if you want to enable data access control, you can enable it later on as well. Once you will click on create, then this hide feature of the hierarchy node for users without authorization. Then you can use this enable responsibility and currency option. So this name already exists. I will use something called region underscore s, and then I will give the description. Okay. So I will click on create now. So this is my dimension table. It's created already. So now what I have to do is to add the properties. So let's suppose this is the dimension table that we want to create in our SSE. So we will have description, continent, country, city. So what we will do, we will keep on adding here. So here you see there is a property option. So you can create property, and as we discussed, these are the property types available. So you see these all we have discussed: currency, unit, text, decimal, integer, longitude, latitude, country, region, sub-region. So in our case, for example, we'll go with, so description will come by default, and then you need to add the other one. So for example, we have continent. Okay, so we have continent as the text, and let's suppose we want to give it as, don't give unnecessary length. You can also choose like 50 or something. Okay, so we have given the ID as continent, description as well as continent, type as text, and length as 50. Then you can also select whether you want this field as a mandatory or not. Mandatory are like, for example, for you are maintaining this feature some planning for some planning function, and that value is used in your calculations for the planning. It is very useful, very important. And if it is a mandatory, then your planning function will fail or the data allocation will fail. So then you can enable it so that when the data will be loaded or updated, it can't have a blank values. So you can make it as a mandatory. For our case, it is fine. So I will leave it like this. Similarly, quickly I will add the other properties as well. So we'll create population now. So population is of type integer. So we will select the correct type. Click OK. So now we have created a currency of type currency. So we have a sales unit as a unit. So now we have created a sales unit as a unit. Click on create. So these our currency and unit are created as a property. So the last is parent ID, which will be used to create the hierarchy. Okay, so I will just simply name it as parent and keep as is. Click OK. So our table is created, a dimension table, and you can see all the properties are added. The member ID, then we have the description, currency, we have the continent, country, city, population, sales unit we have, and parent we have. So once it is done, we will save our dimension table. Next step would be to add the data. So there are two ways to add the data. You can manually add it just like an Excel, like you can click over it and you can write it whatever you want to write over here and save it. So this is one way. You can write the data, copy paste the data, and it will be saved. Other option is like from the data management. So copy and paste is very simple. Just copy and paste from your Word document or Excel document from here. So I will show you how to upload the data. So for uploading the data, we will select file, and then we will select our file for the demo purpose. We'll select the first row as the column header, click import. Okay, so this is how we are able to see the data. Then all the data is mapped, so you can see the mapping from here. So your dimension ID should be mapped with your region ID. So if something is not mapped, you can select from here. So dimension mapping is very important. If something is wrongly, so the description of SSC is mapped with the description column of your Excel, continent with continent, country with country, city with city, population with population, currency with currency, sales unit with sales unit, and parent with parent ID. So all mapping is correct. But in case if something is not automatically mapped, then you need to map it manually. Okay, so here you see there is no issues, all seems okay. Now we will see at the model level if there is any issue. So there is one error we can see now, invalid value for the property data type. Okay, so maybe because we have integer and maybe the value is very high, that is why it is not taking. So what we will do, we can replace this value, okay, with some smaller value. We will see. We will press enter. Okay, so now all green because of the length of the value it was throwing an error. So now everything is fine, all mapping are green, everything is okay. So now here we already know, in case you want to perform any transformation, in the previous session we have already seen how we can perform the transformation. Here I have seen how you will map the data with the dimension. So all done, you can finish the mapping and finish it. So in case if you have a very smaller data set, you can manually copy paste directly in the dimension table as I have shown you. But in case if you have a longer data set, or maybe in case you don't have a manual data set but you want to upload it from any connection or any system, then you can use this option like import from file or import from system, and then select the mapping accordingly. So this is how we can upload the data to the dimension table. So you can see the status 12 records are added already. Now we will go back to the dimension table to check if our data is already added. So we can see our data is already added, which is good. So all data is there as per our need. So now we'll see like how the data access control, parent, hide parent, responsible, and data locking works. So we'll see like when we enable data access control here, two new columns are added as I said, and you can maintain the respective user over here, like whosoever is having the access. So as of now I will not maintain anything because I need the access for everything, but later on I will show you how the data access control will work. So I will have a separate session for that because it is very important. Then hide parent will work in case you have a data access control enabled, otherwise it is disabled. So once, because it is applicable only when the data access control is enabled, so that you will be only able to access the nodes that you have the access, not the parent nodes of that. And then the responsible you can add, the users you can add to the responsible, another person responsible will be added, and here also you see you can add the user from the user list. And the last option is the data locking option. So this is for the planning purpose where we do the data logging, that no further planning or input can be done. So these are the four features how by just clicking on it it will get added. Okay, so now we will try to see how we can create a hierarchy. So there are two types of hierarchies: level based hierarchy and parent child hierarchy. Because we have a parent column over here, so in this case we will try to see how we can create a parent child hierarchy. So just click on the parent child hierarchy. So you need to create a column for parent child hierarchy, which you can name as click create. So here you can see a parent is added. Now this is not like here you have seen like we cannot use the existing one. It always asks to create a new when we create a parent child hierarchy, because this is not of type hierarchy. So what we will do, we will copy the value from here using control C and we'll paste it over here. Okay, so this is our hierarchy. Okay, so this will be our root node. Root is the topmost node. So whenever you don't have anything assigned, you need to assign it to the root. Okay, that means our root will be, we have two root nodes. In many cases you can have single root node as well, most of the cases. So now we'll click on the hierarchy, and you see now we are able to see the parent ID, then Asia and Europe. Within Asia we have India, Japan, UAE. Within Europe we have Germany and France. Within France we have Berlin, sorry, within Germany we have Berlin. Within France we have Paris, and within UAE we have Dubai. Japan we have Tokyo. India we have Mumbai. So the hierarchy is created and it's very simple. So there is no complication. Only thing is like we need the parent node of these. So these are the original value or the node, the child node, and their respective parents. So we have maintained the parent ID over here, and hierarchy is created. So this is how simply we can create a hierarchy. Okay, we can also delete the hierarchy if not needed. Okay, or if we will create a multiple hierarchy, then we can also set one of the hierarchy as default. So we can have multiple hierarchies created, just like one we created as a parent hierarchy, we will create another parent ID, another parent ID. We can have multiple. So because we want to represent data based on the business needs, so we can create using this option, we can create a multiple hierarchies. But the thing that you need to note over here, that you can't create both level based as well as parent child hierarchy together. So once you create a parent child hierarchy, you can create multiple parent child hierarchy. Similarly, once you create level based hierarchy, you can create a multiple level based hierarchy. Okay, I will cancel this because I'm not going to create multiple hierarchies. Now there is another option like empty hierarchy values. Okay, so there are things like, let's suppose you have a transaction data. So here you have Mumbai, Tokyo, Dubai, Berlin, Paris. But let's suppose you have a transaction coming for New Delhi. Now New Delhi is not part of this data, so it is not part of this hierarchy. That means it will go under unassigned. So either you can remove it from the hierarchy, or you can group it and show it as not in hierarchy. So based on the requirement, sometimes we don't need, so I only need what is part of my hierarchy. But if I also need like something is not maintained in the hierarchy, but I need to see if any new data comes, I need to see it under not in hierarchy, then we can enable this option if you want to see it. So this is the case, so it is automatically mapped to the root node. Okay, so if we create another like all not in hierarchy, and we can create New Delhi and all over here, or you do not need to create, actually whatever transaction data will come and is not part of this data, then it will be added to the not in hierarchy option. Okay, so this is all I think we wanted to discuss. Let's see some other features. So let's suppose if your data is very high and if you want to update manual update for only one or two records, then there is also a filter option using which you can select the member ID or the any property you can select and do the filter, so that it will be easy to find, because many of the cases you have 1,000 plus records. So this filter option you can see, and then there is display option. You can switch the mode. You can display it like this, or you can display it as like a grid as well. Then you have a here plus option. Plus is nothing but when you click on plus, another rows will be getting added, and then you need to manually input the values. Copy option, like if you want to copy anything. Delete option, like if you don't want any line, any row you want to delete, so you can delete. So delete selected member, or even you can select all and delete all members. Okay, so that those options are available. Hierarchy we have already seen. Now if your data is having any issues, then it will come over here that there is some issue with your data. So here everything is fine, so we can save it. So now we will create a dimension of type organization. We will give any name based on the available names, and then we'll give the description. And here you notice that when you select an organization, this enable responsibility and enable currency are automatically ticked, and you can't uncheck it. So this is already enabled for organization type. Now we click on create. So the organization dimension table is created. Now we will in the similar way we will maintain the properties. So as currency is automatically added, and you can see you can't delete it. So for an organization, these are the mandatory features, those are added by the system itself. Apart from those, you can add the other properties. So I will not take much time, because adding the property is similar, loading the data is also similar. So I will finish that part, and I will show you that how we can create a level based hierarchy. So we have added the respective properties, which are only company, division, and department. Currency was already added. Person responsible was already added. So we have added these three features. So as the data set is small, I will simply copy the data from here and will paste here. So you can see it's very simple. If your data set is small, you can simply use copy paste option to paste the data. I will leave the person responsible as blank for the time being, and I'll save the data. So the data is saved. Now I will go to details, and I will try to create a hierarchy. So I will create a level based hierarchy. So this is how the level based hierarchy window appears. So you can select your member ID and then the respective levels. Like this is the level 1, and then you will have the respective department, for example. You can place it over here, and then you have the respective division, for example, and then you have the respective company. So accordingly the levels are added, and then you can name it as, for example, you can name it as cost center hierarchy, cost center hierarchy. Okay, and you can click OK. Then we will click on the hierarchy. So here you see you can also create a new hierarchies. So when you click on the new hierarchy, then again it will come. So you can give another name. So as we have created, we can create multiple parent child hierarchy. When we create a parent child hierarchy, similar if we create a level based hierarchy, so from here we can create multiple level based hierarchies from the same master data. I'll cancel it because I don't want to create multiple hierarchies. Now the same option are there. When you create multiple hierarchies, you can set it as a default. If you want to delete it, you can delete it. You can copy the hierarchy, then later on edit it. So any option you can do. And then you have the same option like how you want to show the empty one. So you can show as no value in the hierarchy, or you can remove from hierarchy, or you can group and show them not in the hierarchy. Okay, so these are the three options like how you can arrange it. So now we have seen like how we can create an organization type dimension, how we can create a generic dimension, and how we can create a level based hierarchy or parent child hierarchy, create several properties within the dimension table, and all the features we have discussed. We will now create or use one model where we will add these two fields, two dimensions that we have created, and we'll see like how the data will appear in our final report. This is the previous model that we have created during the model session. So we will try to add our public dimension here itself. So before adding anything, what we will do, we will delete the data, because we need to reload the data for the newly added fields. So we will delete entire data. Yes. Okay, so here you can see there are 100 records. Now it will be deleted. Now 100 records are deleted. Now I will also show you how you can create a dimension, and you can mark it as a public from here. So you need to just click on add dimension from here. Then this window will open. Then there are certain options, right? You can add a new dimension, okay, or and you can use it. So if you mark this option, this new dimension will be public. So from here also, from model, this is how you can create a public dimension. Or you don't want to add a dimension table, that means you just want a normal a dimension without any master data or property, then you use the last option. So here what we will do, because we have already created the dimension table, we will use the existing one. So add existing dimension table. So our dimension was, first dimension was we created was region. So region underscore s1 is the dimension that we created. So we will just verify the table is correct. So here you can see this is the table that we created. We'll go back. Now we will add our organization, which is cost center. So now we will select our cost center, which was cost center underscore s, and click on add. So now we have added the two dimensions, public dimensions that we have created. As you can see over here, this is the symbol of the public dimension. And now we will save our model. So our model is saved. Now we will try to load the data. So now we will load a new file to update the data, where we have updated the organization, which is the cost center, and the region value. So we do not need to perform any transformation over here. So we will click on next. Now here, this is the public region where we need to map our region data. So for that, we need to remove this region, which is the private dimension, and we'll mark it as set as default as no value for this. And for this one, we will map the region value. Okay, click next. Because we have two region in our data model, so either you can delete one of the region and only keep the public one, or you can I didn't delete it, that is why I kept it as a blank value or no value. So data is validated. We will clean and load the data. Finish. So all records are updated now. Now the last thing is, because our data is updated, now we will see how the data looks like in the story. So we will create one sample story where we will use a responsive story page. and we'll simply use a table format to see how the data looks like. So here we will select our model. So our model that we have updated just now is sales order. So we will select our sales order model, which is this one. Okay, and we will not put any value for this. And then we have this as an actual. Now I will show you how our hierarchy will work. So we have created hierarchy for cost center. So we will first see how the cost center is appearing. So you can see, let me show you, let me remove this. So this is our cost center, and now if you drill down to the cost center, you will see the value for global corp. Within global corp, you will see the value for each of the respective areas like customer support, finance, everything. So this is how our parent child hierarchy is working, because for cost center we have used parent child hierarchy. Sorry, for the region we have used the parent child hierarchy. For cost center we have used the level based hierarchy, where we have the division and the department and the respective company code. Okay, so this is very easy to add. Similarly, we can have our another hierarchy, which is our region. So we will add our region data. Okay, so our top level is Europe and Asia. So within Asia, you can see if I drill down. So this is my level based hierarchy. So we have India, and we have Mumbai, we have Japan, we have Tokyo. So respective. And if I remove the cost center to make it a simpler one, so you'll see like how the data is distributed. So this is how we have created the hierarchy. And this hierarchy is not like only we can use in table format, but this can also be used in charts. And this can also be used for filter option. If we go with the filter option from here, and we'll add a page filter, for example. Okay, we can add the page filter, we can select the dimension, and if we select the cost center, here you see, clicking on the cost center and going to the member value, you will have an option for an hierarchy, because it has an hierarchy available. So you can see here the hierarchy is available, and you can click OK. So when user will also be able to select the hierarchy from this level. So it's very convenient to select. So this is how hierarchy can be added. We can also select the respective level here, or the select the respective hierarchy in case there are multiple hierarchies involved. So that is one of the thing. Apart from this, the other advantage, it's not like only about the hierarchies. We also have an option to select the other properties. So for example, here you see there is an option to add the property. So in the master data, whatever property are available, for example, I want to see the respective population of each of the region. So then I can select the population here, and you can see the population are appearing here. Okay, it's very simple to add. So that is why it's very important that we don't want to duplicate the data in transaction data. So we create a master data. So these are this is just for an example, because population is something which is a changing thing, and changing thing we consider as a not as a master data but as a transaction data. But just for the sake of demo purpose, I have created this. So whatever features you'll add for a region, all features will be available and you can add in your report. So that is how easy it is. And it is a display property as well. So for example, if you save this story and provide the access to any of the user, so that user will still be able to access all this. So they can just add simply whatever is required, like sales unit, and click OK. So like this it can be added. It's very easy to use. Okay, so this was all about the dimensions. I will not cover, I have explained about the data restriction or the data access control, but because that is a broader topic, I will take it as a separate session where I will show the several ways to restrict the data, create the roles and all. So I will cover that during the role session. But for this session, I think it is sufficient enough related to the dimensions. So it's time to move to the question and answer section. So our first question is, which automatically created dimension type you can delete from an analytical data model? So which is the type of the dimension that you can delete from analytical data model? Which dimension type you can use like a measure? Third question is, in which type of data sources you can concatenate data? There are three correct answers. The SAP Analytics Cloud Modeler has removed the first three characters from a SAP Analytics Cloud public dimension imported from a source system. So what is the impact by this change? Whether it will impact the public dataset, or it will impact the source system, or it is going to impact the stories or embedded dataset. So these are the four questions. So this is all about today's session. Hope you like the content. If yes, please do subscribe the channel if you haven't subscribed it yet. Press the bell icon to receive the latest uploads notification. We'll meet you soon in the next video. Till then, stay tuned. Have a nice day. Bye bye.